Hi YouTubers, UXO here. Today we're going to look at the dryer. It's not drying properly. So it seems the heat comes on and then stops right away, and then it takes forever to dry. So I've never owned a stackable washer and dryer before, or a Frigidaire for that matter. So we're going to see if we can repair this, and you guys can follow along and maybe I'll help you out. So the first thing I'm going to do, I mean, I'm not a professional by any means, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if the heating element inside lights up. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to override the closing switches and let it run while the door is open. So this will let me know if the heating element in the back is working, or if the temperature limitation switch, I believe it's called, it's a switch inside the back of the dryer which controls the heating element so it doesn't overheat your dryer. Take a small screwdriver and insert it into the door closer. The latch is for this latch right here, this metal latch. It's a safety switch. And then we're going to push the button and start the dryer. So we're going to look inside to see if we can see if that element lights up in the back. I have it on high heat and heavy duty. And hope you can see in there. Yeah, you can see in there pretty good. You can see the elements lighting up in there, I hope. Yep, you can see that. It's going red, which is a good sign. So it means there's heat. I'm just going to let it run to see if the temperature limitation switch shuts off. And you can see the glow and it's gone now, which it could cycle on and off so the dryer doesn't get too hot. We're going to just let it run for a bit to see if the element comes back on. Okay, so I'll let it run for a couple of minutes and switch to temperature settings. When I stop the dryer and restart it, the heating element comes back on, but it only stays on for 3 to 5 seconds, and I can hear the thermal switch in there clicking off, and it never restarted. So I'm going to try to figure out how to take this front panel off, and it could be a loose ground, it could be just a loose cable that's connected to the temperature limitation switch, but I'll know better when I take it apart and remove the front plate and take the barrel out. It looks like there's an access panel here I'm going to remove. There we go. Okay. Now it looks like there's a second plate right here. Make sure you don't lose any of the screws. So I'm just going to take a look around. It's not too dirty looking in here. See, usually the temperature switch, it's probably, I can see some wires going up inside. It's probably up inside there, in behind the barrel. So which means we're going to have to take the barrel off, which I've never done before. So I'm just going to pause the video here and take a look around and be right back. Okay, so I looked around. There's a couple of screws up top. I'm thinking I have to remove this panel off the front to get at the ability to take this off. First thing I'm going to do though is remove the door. It will make the front panel much lighter. Now, looks like we've got a couple of screws on the bottom here. Be careful, you don't want to break anything. There we go. A little bit of dust back here. So we got a couple of big plugs that I have to unplug from the circuit board. Probably just the two that are located. Probably just the two that are located over here. There, shouldn't, just that one, just to get it out of the way so I don't, it's not in my way when I take the barrel out. So So just a single one. What I'm going to do is after, if it repaired, I'll clean this all up, clean all the dust out of here, the lint that's piled on all the circuit boards. So a couple of screws here I see, and I can feel that there's a few screws up top. So I'll remove the ones up top first, and then I'll take this out, and hopefully the front plate will just pull right off. Oh, I think it just let go already. Now I'm going to put these little screws up here as well, so that I know that they're all for the same thing. There you have it. Wow, that was quite simple. People are intimidated by washers and dryers, and most handymans or handy ladies can do it themselves. So, to remove the drum, there's 3 screws in the back. Those 3 screws there, they should be the ones that are holding the drum on. Maybe these ones here as well, I'm not sure, but I'm going to try with the first 3. I also know you have to take off, you have to remove the belt. Let the belt unit is back in here, and I'll disconnect the camera when I do that to show you guys how to do that. Remember, I had the power off already, so if we remove those 1, 2, 5, well, there's a bolt missing, so 5 bolts or 5 screws, I should be able to then disconnect the pulley, I'll show you that in a second, and remove the complete dryer drum. That seemed to be the plate. So all you do is you pull the pulley forward back there. I know it's hard to see. There's a pulley back there, you pull it forward, and it loosens the belt off. So you can see now that the belt is loose. And it's not on the pulley no more, because we don't want it to snag up when we pull the drum out. If I remove those other 3 screws, hopefully the drum will come right out. I say hopefully. It might fall a little bit. So, oh, it's already loose. There we go. So I guess it's the outer screws, not the inner screws. I'm gonna hold it up, take the last screw out. And now, hopefully, the drum. That was just a heating plate that I disconnected. And as you can see, the drum comes right out. Yeah, see, so that's just a shroud that fell. So I'll screw that back on the back before I put the drum back in. So you see, you got your belt, make sure you don't lose that. So this was just a shroud that fell, that was on the back of the drum. So I'll screw, like I said, I'll screw that back onto the drum before I put the drum back in there. So now that we have it open, we can see here. So one of them is failing, so what we'll do is we'll do a continuity check on them. Basically, a continuity check to make sure that the current is flowing through one side and passes through the other side. Because if it's not, well then your driver's not going to work properly. All I'm going to do is I just got a little multimeter here. And you have to check your owner's manual for your multimeter to set it up properly, to check for resistance. Mine's pretty easy. Just set it to the ohm setting, and then you set it for the tone. So to test, to make sure that your multimeter is correctly working, when you touch these 2 leads together, you should get close to 0, which means the power is running through one and through the other. So then you know it's good. So, and this one has an audible tone. there you go, we have perfect continuity, which means we have power running through one side to the other. So that means the multimeter's working properly. Welcome back. My camera card got full, so I didn't realize it, so I had to empty out my camera. So what you missed was that I removed the thermal fuse that's located down here, and the high limit thermostat. So I think this is the culprit. This is the basically it shuts off the heat when it senses the dryer at the proper operating temperature. And I've read that it can get faulty and it can shut off early, and I think that's what's happening. So I went and ordered a new one. And I got it here. It's a couple days. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this one with the old one. And this second one is the thermal fuse, and this is a one-time shot. If this blows, you have to replace it. There's no reset on this. As per the thermostat one, it resets itself. So I think it may be faulty inside, but I'm not sure. So I bought a new one. I'm going to replace this, and this one had good continuity. All I did was, when the video died, was I had to loosen up the back plate to be able to get to the screws that hold each one of these back in. So I'm just going to put the new basically the high limit thermostat back in, the new one that I got. And I'm just going to test to see, make sure it has continuity before I put it back in, the new one. So this is a little tricky to get in because it's up very high up there. And I had it, like I said, I took off the back plate so I could lower it down to get a little screwdriver in to take the two screws off up there. Okay, so that was in. Now I'm just going to put the thermal fuse. Now I'm going to put the plate back on. They're just 4 screws. Make sure you snug everything up, because dryer vibrates, of course. Don't want anything coming loose. So now that we got the new high limit thermostat and the thermal fuse installed, I'm going to put the front plate back on, and we're going to start up the dryer to see if the element comes on and stays on, because as before we've seen the element would come on and click off and then wouldn't come back on. So this will be good enough to start it, to see if the element comes on inside. I'm going to plug it back in now. So what we're looking for now is that element to glow back there for a little bit of time and not shut off right away. So we're going to put on normal wash, high temperature, and start. Feel the heat coming out. Should be glowing red hot pretty soon. So there it is, glowing red hot. You can see that. And we're going to see if it should stay on for a little bit to its proper temperature and then click off. But before it was clicking off right away at about 10 seconds. So far, seems okay. Now I'm just going to shut it off, because last time I did that, I shut it off and restarted, it didn't re-glow because it had tripped the high limitation thermostat. So I'm going to start it again and see if it glows red hot again. Feel the heat coming out? There it is. I'm going to leave it run for a couple of minutes. No, not a couple of minutes, 30 seconds. Goes down, it's clicking back on. The thermostat came back down to the proper operating temperature, and it's putting heat back into the dryer. So the reason why it took a little longer for it to come back in, because of course the drum's not in there and there's no airflow flowing around inside the dryer and exhausting it out of here. So the heat's just sitting in there radiating, so it took the thermostat a little while to cool back down. So that appears to have been the problem. The high limitation thermostat, which is located in my dryer up in the top. And the tricky thing about that is because they can work but then not be able to go to their maximum temperature. So they can have positive continuity like we had to say that they're okay, but internally there's a malfunction where they don't reach their maximum temperature before they click off. It's way before their maximum temperature, they click off and then they don't come back on. So when you go to test it, it had reset itself by then and it seemed to be okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it all back to, first clean it all, unplug it, clean all the panels, and then put the drum and everything back together, and then do a test again with the drum in and then the airflow, and to see if the and I'll leave the door off so we can take a look at it. Okay, now that we've got it all cleaned out, I'm going to put the barrel back in, the drum. So what you'd like to do is give you some kind of lineup. Put the top screw hole of the drum holder right at the very top. So when you bring the drum in, you can sort of line it up because you can't see, of course. So let's give it a shot. I put the belt back on just loosely for now. So I'm going to try to see if I can line this up. I'll just use my flashlight to see if I can see the holes and line them up. I got one in, so okay, so the next step is to put the drive belt back on the drive motor. There is an access tube, access plate right in the back down there, so you can get it off, pull the dryer out, and because the belt's got to come around the bottom of the motor, and then there's like a cam brake that puts tension on the belt. So I'm going to lower the camera and set it up so you guys can. So you're not probably going to be able to see this too well because I'm going to do it by feel. So at the back of the motor there's a little round wheel that's got a groove in it that the belt will fit in, and then it will come up, and then there's a pulley. See if I can pull this out and you guys can see it. See that? Can you see that? I don't think you can see that, but there's a pulley. There's a tension pulley. So if that's the motor, the belt comes around and goes up, and then the pulley sits here and pulls that belt down to make it tight. So I'll just do it by feel and we'll see how it goes. Okay, it's pretty simple actually. And we'll roll it a few bit by hand to line, make sure the belt's lined up around the drum. See the old line where it was, so it should line itself up in a few minutes once it's running. The front plate back on, and we'll do a quick test and we'll see if everything works out. Make sure you take the screws out that you left in here. Now we'll try it, see if it actually clicks in there. There we go. So I'll put the 2 bottom screws in here, and this should hopefully square everything up. They don't leave much room here for this plug, I tell you. Sounds good. Heard the thermal switch click. Yeah, see glowing now. Hope you guys can. Yeah. Okay. Got the door on. Did a test run, cycled on, stayed warm. So looks like it was the problem. I'll just finish closing off the dryer. Apparently that's the wrong screw. Okay, so there you have it. Just a few things. Remember, always unplug the dryer when you're working on the inside of it at any time, because it's 220, so it'd be a bad day if you hit something in there with the power on. And when you're working with the door open and it's running, again, you know, make sure you're not sticking your hands in there or anything to get caught in there. So I give this job about handyman level 7.5. The biggest thing you need is a multimeter and know how to use it properly to make sure you're checking the resistance of the either the thermal fuse or the thermostat, high temperature thermostat, which on ours the thermal fuse was good, which was the bottom right one, and the high limitation thermostat, which was faulty. It gave me a positive. If you remember when I did the continuity test, it gave me a positive, but it was still faulty, and that can happen. So, and that's the reason why I ordered it online, got it in a couple days, and replaced it, and it seemed to be the problem. Luckily, it was the problem, and it was an easy home improvement fix. So if you have any questions, just put them in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see what my next video will be for home improvements. Thank you again. Have a great day.